The sun was already high when Elias Carter realized he was alone. Only a few hours earlier, he had been riding with 2 wagons and 4 other men, guiding them through a narrow stretch of desert land most travelers avoided. The canyon walls had risen sharply on both sides, red stone glowing under the heat. Elias had warned them not to rush, not to shout, not to fire their guns unless absolutely necessary. This land was Apache territory, and respect mattered more than speed. Then everything happened at once. A sudden noise echoed through the canyon stones, breaking loose, horses panicking, men yelling. Elias's horse reared, and before he could turn back, the wagons scattered in different directions. Dust filled the air, blinding him. He heard gunshots in the distance, then silence. When the dust settled, there was no sign of the others. Only empty land, stretched wide and unforgiving. Elias waited, listening. The desert had a way of holding its breath after chaos, as if it were watching to see what a man would do next. He dismounted slowly and led his horse toward a narrow path that cut between the rocks. He did not call out. Calling out could bring help or danger. He knew better than to assume the land was empty just because it looked that way. As he moved deeper into the canyon, he noticed something strange. There were tracks in the sand, lighter than a man's boots, leading toward a hidden spring. One set stumbled, uneven and slow. Elias hesitated. Every instinct told him to turn back, but another part of him, the part that had kept him alive through years of frontier work, knew that someone was hurt. The spring was tucked behind a curve of stone, shaded and quiet. Water trickled softly over smooth rocks. And there, half hidden by brush, lay a woman. She was unconscious, her dark hair spread across the ground, her breathing shallow but steady. Her clothes marked her clearly as Apache. There was dried blood along her arm, and her ankle was badly swollen. She could not have traveled far on her own. Elias froze. Helping her could cost him his life. Leaving her could cost her hers. He looked around, expecting at any moment to see Apache warriors emerge from the rocks. Nothing moved. The desert remained still, patient. Slowly, carefully, Elias knelt beside her. He did not touch her at first. He spoke softly, not expecting an answer, just letting his voice exist in the space so she would not wake to a stranger's silence. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said. "I won't do anything you don't want." She did not stir. Elias checked her injury as gently as he could. The cut on her arm was deep but clean, likely from sharp stone. The ankle was worse. If she tried to walk on it, she would only make it worse. Left alone in this heat, she would not last long. He made his decision. Using water from the spring, he cleaned the wound on her arm. He tore a strip from his own shirt to bind it. When she stirred slightly, he pulled back at once, hands raised, showing he meant no harm. Her eyes fluttered open for a moment, dark, alert even through pain before closing again. She lived. That was enough for now. Elias set up a small shelter using his bedroll and the rocks nearby. He kept his fire small and smokeless, cooking what little food he had without drawing attention. Every movement he made was careful, respectful. He knew he was a guest here, whether he had been invited or not. As night came, the temperature dropped sharply. Elias placed his coat near her, not on her, close enough to offer warmth without taking away her choice. He slept lightly, waking at every sound. Just before dawn, he felt movement. She was sitting up, her back against the rock, watching him. Her eyes were sharp now, full of awareness. She said something in Apache, her voice low but steady. Elias did not understand the words, but he understood the meaning. "Who are you? Why are you here?" "My name is Elias," he said slowly. "I'm a guide. I found you hurt. I stayed." She studied him for a long moment, her gaze moving from his face to his hands, to the bandage on her arm. She tested her ankle and winced but did not cry out. Strength showed in the way she held herself, even in pain. "You could have left," she said in accented English. Her voice was calm, but there was weight behind it. "I could have," Elias answered honestly. "I didn't." That seemed to matter. She told him her name was Ayanna. She did not explain who she was beyond that. But the way she spoke, the confidence in her eyes, told Elias she was no ordinary traveler. There was authority in her presence, quiet but undeniable. They spoke little after that. Words were not necessary. Elias offered food. She accepted. He asked permission before doing anything, before checking her bandage, before helping her drink. Each time, she nodded or spoke a single word. Trust grew not from promises, but from restraint. By midday, the sound of distant voices echoed through the canyon. Ayanna heard it first. Her posture changed, alert and ready. She said something quickly, gesturing for Elias to step back. He did not argue. He stood, hands visible, heart pounding. Apache warriors emerged from the rocks like the land itself had shaped them. They moved silently, weapons ready, eyes sharp. They surrounded the spring in moments. Ayanna spoke before anyone else could. Her words were strong, clear. She pointed to Elias, then to her injuries, then to the bandage on her arm. The men listened. Their eyes never left Elias. One of them stepped forward. Older than the rest, his presence carried weight. He looked at Elias long and hard, then spoke in a deep, measured voice. Ayanna translated slowly. "You are on Apache land. You touched one of our people." Elias swallowed. "I helped her." "That's all." The older man looked at Ayanna. She nodded once. There was a pause, long, heavy, filled with unspoken judgment. Elias felt the truth of it then. Whatever he had done here, whatever choice he had made, it was no longer only his. The Apache did not strike him. They did not bind him. Instead, they helped Ayanna rise, supporting her carefully. As they prepared to leave, the older man turned back to Elias. "You will come," Ayanna translated. "There are laws older than you know." Elias did not resist. He followed, aware that saving a life in this land was not a simple act. It was a crossing. And once crossed, there was no returning. Unchanged, Elias walked behind the group in silence as they moved through the canyon. No one tied his hands, but the way the warriors surrounded him made it clear he was not free to wander. Their steps were steady and calm, as if they had all the time in the world. Elias tried to match their pace, though his thoughts raced ahead. Ayanna was supported by two women now. Her injured ankle kept off the ground as much as possible. She did not look back at Elias, but he sensed she was aware of him the entire time. Every few steps, one of the women spoke to her softly, checking her strength. This was not a rescue filled with fear or anger. It was careful, controlled, and deeply respectful. They reached the camp as the sun lowered in the sky. Tents stood in a wide circle, smoke rising gently from cooking fires. Children paused their play to watch the group arrive. Elders sat near the center, their eyes sharp despite their age. The air felt heavy, not with threat, but with attention. Elias felt every gaze on him. The older man who had spoken earlier stepped forward again. His hair was streaked with gray, his face marked by years of wisdom and hard decisions. When he spoke, the camp grew quiet. Ayanna was helped to sit near the elders. One of the women cleaned her wounds again, this time with practiced skill. Elias noticed how gently they worked, how nothing was rushed. This was not a people who acted without thought. The older man spoke, and Ayanna listened closely. Then she looked at Elias. "My father wants to know everything," she said. "From the moment you found me." Elias nodded. He spoke carefully, choosing honesty over defense. He told them about the ambush, about being separated from his group. He explained how he followed the tracks to the spring, how he found Ayanna injured and alone. He described cleaning her wound, setting the bandage, staying through the night. He did not exaggerate his courage, nor did he hide his fear. "I knew the risk," he said, "but I could not leave her." The elders listened without interrupting. When he finished, there was a long silence. Elias felt sweat on his back. Though the air had cooled, one elder spoke quietly. Another responded. Their words moved slowly, like stones placed with care. Elias could not understand the language, but he understood the weight of the discussion. This was not about him alone. It was about law, balance, and meaning. Ayanna spoke again, her voice steady. She pointed to the bandage on her arm, then to Elias. He did not take advantage, she said. He asked before touching. He slept away from me. He showed respect. That, Elias realized, mattered as much as the act itself. The older man studied Elias again. Why risk your life for someone not your own? Ayanna translated. Elias did not answer right away. He thought of all the reasons he could give. Kindness, duty, chance. But none felt complete. Because leaving her would have made me less than I am, he said finally. The words surprised even him. The elder nodded slowly. Elias was not taken as a prisoner. Instead, he was given a place near the edge of the camp. Food was brought to him simple, warm, shared without ceremony. He ate slowly, aware that every move he made was still being watched. That night, he did not sleep much. The sounds of the camp were unfamiliar but not hostile. Soft voices, the crackle of fire, the distant call of night birds. He thought of the life he had known beyond this place and wondered how far away it now felt. The next days passed in careful rhythm. Ayanna's ankle was treated daily. Elias was allowed to sit nearby but not interfere. He noticed how decisions were made together. How even the chief listened to others before speaking. Strength here did not mean command alone. It meant responsibility. On the third day, the elders called Elias forward again. This time, the mood was different. Not tense, but serious. Ayanna stood beside him now, leaning on a carved staff. Her face was calm, but her eyes held something unreadable. A senior elder spoke at length. When he finished, Ayanna turned to Elias. There is an old law, she said. When a life is saved in a place where death is certain, a bond is formed. Not of ownership, of duty. Elias felt his chest tighten. What kind of duty? To protect balance, she answered. To honor what was given. Another elder spoke, and Ayanna continued. You are not punished. But you are not untouched. Your choice created meaning. Elias tried to understand. What does that mean for me? It means, she said carefully, that you are now known to us. Your actions are tied to our people. He looked around the circle. No one looked angry. No one looked pleased. They looked resolved. Ayanna's father spoke again. His voice was firm, but not cruel. Ayanna translated. You crossed into our world and acted with honor. Our law recognizes that. You may leave, but the bond remains. Or you may stay and learn what it means. Elias felt the weight of the choice settle over him. Leaving would be easier, safer. Staying meant uncertainty, change, responsibility he did not yet understand. He looked at Ayanna. She met his gaze without flinching. This is not a cage, she said quietly. And I am not a prize. The law binds meaning, not bodies. Her words cut through his fear. I don't want to disrespect your ways, Elias said. But I don't want to walk away either. A faint nod passed among the elders. That evening, Ayanna spoke to him alone for the first time. They sat near the fire, far enough from others to allow privacy, close enough to remain within sight. You could still leave tomorrow, she said. And you? He asked. I will heal, she said simply. But what you did will be remembered. He studied the fire, watching sparks rise and disappear. I didn't expect any of this. No one does, she replied. That is why the law exists. To guide what comes after. In the days that followed, Elias began to learn. Not through lessons, but through observation. He helped where he was allowed, carrying water, repairing tools, listening more than speaking. Trust did not come quickly, but it came honestly. Some watched him with curiosity, others with caution. None treated him as invisible. Ayanna grew stronger each day. As she walked more steadily, she began to speak with him more often. Not about the law, but about the land, the seasons, the stories carried by the people. Elias listened, realizing that saving her life had not ended anything. It had begun something far larger than himself, and somewhere deep within him, he understood that the moment he chose not to walk away at the spring, his path had already changed whether he had known it or not. The meeting was called again when the moon was high, and the camp had grown quiet. Fires burned low, and the air carried the smell of earth and smoke. Elias was asked to sit near the center this time, not at the edge. That small change told him everything. He was no longer just a stranger passing through. Ayanna stood beside her father, her posture steady. She no longer needed support to stand, though she still leaned on her staff when she walked. Her strength had returned quickly, but the experience had changed her. Elias could see it in the way she listened now, more thoughtful, more aware of the weight of each word spoken. The elders formed a half circle. No one rushed. Silence settled like a blanket, calm and firm. One elder began to speak, his voice low but clear. He spoke of the land first, how it gave life, and how it took it back. He spoke of balance, of actions, and their echoes. Elias could not understand the language, but Ayanna translated slowly, carefully, as if each sentence mattered deeply. When someone is saved where death is certain, she said, it is not seen as chance. It is seen as a crossing. Elias listened closely. The elder continued, explaining that the law was not written on paper. It lived in memory, passed from one generation to the next. It existed to keep harmony between people, land, and spirit. It was not meant to trap anyone. It was meant to guide responsibility. Another elder spoke. Ayanna's voice remained steady as she translated. The one who saves does not own. The one who is saved does not owe. But both are changed. Elias felt something shift inside him. This was not what he had feared. There was no threat, no demand, only meaning. Ayanna's father spoke next. His voice carried authority, but also care. You acted when you did not have to, she translated. You risked yourself without asking for reward. That matters. He paused, then continued. Because of that, a bond exists. Not one of force, one of duty. Elias took a slow breath. What kind of duty? He asked again, needing clarity. Ayanna met his eyes before answering. To act with honor toward our people. To not pretend this never happened. To choose what kind of man you will be now. The elders watched him closely. This was not a test of courage. It was a test of understanding. Elias thought of his old life moving from place to place, guiding others through land that never truly belonged to him. He thought of how easy it would be to leave and speak of this only as a strange memory. And he realized that ease was exactly what the law challenged. I don't want to break your balance, he said carefully. But I also don't know how to live inside it. A soft murmur passed through the elders. Not disapproval recognition. That is why choice matters, Ayanna translated. You are not ordered to stay. You are invited to understand. One elder added something quietly. Ayanna turned back to Elias. The law is complete only when both sides accept its meaning. All eyes turned to her. Ayanna straightened. I accept, she said clearly. Not because I was saved, but because he acted with respect. Apredia. Apredia. Her words surprised Elias more than anything else that night. She was not speaking as someone bound. She was speaking as someone choosing. The elders nodded. The law, it seemed, was not just about past actions. It was about what followed. From that night on, Elias was treated differently. He was no longer simply allowed to stay. He was expected to participate. He was asked to listen to stories, to sit with elders, to learn the reasons behind customs rather than just their rules. Some days were uncomfortable. He made mistakes. He spoke when he should have listened. He misunderstood gestures and meanings. But instead of anger, he was corrected. Quietly, patiently, Ayana often guided him, though she never placed herself above him. She explained traditions in simple words, sharing not just what was done, but why. She never demanded agreement, only attention. "You are not becoming Apache," she told him once as they walked slowly near the edge of camp. "You are becoming responsible." That idea stayed with him. One afternoon, an elder asked Elias to speak to a group of younger men. Not to teach them, but to tell his story. Elias felt unsure. He was used to guiding paths, not words. He spoke honestly. He told them about fear, about choice, about the moment he could have turned away. He did not paint himself as brave. He spoke of doubt. When he finished, one of the younger men asked, through Ayana, "Would you do it again, knowing the cost?" Elias did not answer quickly. He looked at Ayana, then at the land stretching beyond the camp. "Yes," he said, "because the cost is part of the meaning." The elder nodded once. That was enough. As days turned into weeks, Elias began to understand the law not as a single rule, but as a way of living. Actions mattered because they connected people. Saving a life was not heroic because it was dramatic. It was important because it created responsibility. Ayana's role became clearer too. She was not just the chief's daughter. She was a voice between generations. People listened when she spoke, not because of her position alone, but because of her clarity. Their conversations grew deeper. They spoke about differences between their worlds, about mistakes both sides had made, about how fear often shaped decisions more than truth. One evening, Elias asked the question that had been forming in his mind. "What happens if I leave?" he said. Ayana considered this carefully. "You will not be chased," she said. "You will not be punished. But the bond will still exist in memory. And how you live after will show whether you honored it. And if I stay, then you choose to carry the meaning openly," she replied, "to let it shape you." Elias realized then that the law was not about her being bound to him. It was about both of them being bound to what had happened, to honesty, to respect, to the consequences of mercy. That night, Elias sat alone, staring into the fire. He thought of the man he had been before the canyon. He thought of the man he might become if he stayed. There was no rush to decide. The elders did not press him. Ayana did not persuade him. The law allowed space for thought, because true choice required time. As the fire burned low, Elias felt something settle inside him. Not certainty, but readiness. He had crossed into a world shaped by meaning instead of convenience. And for the first time in a long while, walking away felt harder than staying. Whatever he chose next, it would not be by accident. The change did not come all at once. It came in small moments, quiet ones that could be missed if someone was not paying attention. Elias began to notice that people no longer watched him, only to judge. Some watched to understand. Others watched because they expected something from him now. He was given tasks not as orders, but as trust. He helped repair shelters damaged by wind. He carried water during long days of heat. He learned when to step forward and when to step back. Each action, no matter how small, felt like a thread being added to something larger. Ayana walked more freely now. Her ankle healed well, though she still favored it when the ground was rough. She moved through the camp with ease, greeting elders, guiding children, listening more than she spoke. Elias noticed how often people sought her advice. She never raised her voice, never demanded attention. It came to her naturally. One afternoon, Elias struggled while helping to fix a broken frame. He worked in the way he always had, fast, focused, alone. An older man watched for a moment, then stepped in, showing him a different method, slower, shared. Ayana later explained, "Here, working together matters more than finishing first." Elias nodded. realizing how often his old life had been about speed rather than care. As days passed, Elias felt pulled between two worlds. He thought of the towns beyond the desert, of the work waiting there, of people who would never know what he had learned here. He also felt the growing weight of belonging, not ownership, not control, but connection. One evening, he and Ayana sat near the edge of camp, watching the sky darken. "You are quiet today," she said. "I'm thinking," he replied. "That can be dangerous," she said with a small smile. He smiled back. "I don't want to dishonor what you've given me by staying for the wrong reasons." She studied him. "And what would be the wrong reasons?" "Fear," he said. "Or comfort?" She nodded. "Then you are thinking correctly." The elders called another gathering not long after. This time, it was not about the law itself, but about the future. Elias sensed that his time of simply observing was ending. An elder spoke about paths, how every person walks more than one in a lifetime. Some paths run alongside each other for a time, then separate. Others merge and change direction together. Ayana translated, then added her own words. "The law does not decide our lives. It reminds us that our lives matter to others." Her father spoke next. His gaze rested on Elias, not with expectation, but with openness. "You have seen how we live," Ayana translated. "Now you must decide how you will live." The words were not heavy. They were clear. That night, Elias walked alone beyond the camp. The land stretched wide, familiar, and strange at the same time. He thought of the canyon, of the moment he knelt beside Ayana, and chose not to walk away. That choice had been simple. This one was not. He realized something then. Leaving would not erase the bond. Staying would not trap him. The difference lay in whether he wanted to carry the meaning of his choice in silence or in action. When he returned to camp, Ayana was waiting. "I have decided," he said. She did not ask which way. "I want to stay," he continued. "Not because I must. Because I want to learn how to live with what I started." She searched his face carefully. Then she nodded. "That is the right reason." From that day forward, Elias's role became clearer. He was no longer a guest. He was a participant. He was taught skills meant for survival in this land, but also lessons meant for living well. He learned patience. He learned to listen before acting. He learned that strength could be quiet. His relationship with Ayana deepened, not through grand moments, but through shared understanding. They spoke often, sometimes about serious matters, sometimes about small things. There was no rush, no pressure. Respect shaped every step. One day, an elder spoke to Elias privately. "Through Ayana," he said, "the law binds responsibility, not people. If respect fades, the bond fades with it." Elias felt relief at that. "I will not let respect fade," he said. "I believe you," the elder replied. The seasons began to shift. The heat softened. The nights grew cooler. Elias realized he had been here longer than he had planned, and that he was no longer counting the days. Some in the camp began to see Elias as a bridge. He understood parts of the outside world and parts of this one. He did not speak for either side, but he listened to both. That role came with its own weight. One afternoon, a small disagreement arose between two families. Elias watched as elders guided the discussion, allowing each voice to be heard. No one hurried the process. Resolution mattered more than speed. Later, Elias said to Ayana, "In my world, this would have turned into shouting." She smiled softly. "Then perhaps your world could learn something." He laughed quietly. "And perhaps mine could too." As time passed, the idea of the sacred law changed in Elias's mind. It was no longer something mysterious or distant. It was present in daily choices, in how he spoke, how he worked, how he treated others. He understood now that saving Ayana's life had not bound her to him. It had bound him to responsibility, to awareness, to a deeper way of living. One evening, as they watched the fire together, Ayana spoke. "The elders will soon speak of what comes next," she said. "And what is that?" Elias asked. She met his eyes, calm and steady. "What we choose to build." Elias felt no fear at her words. Only readiness. He had crossed between worlds, not by force, but by choice. And whatever the future held, he knew one thing clearly. This was no longer just a story of rescue. It was a story of belonging, shaped by respect, and carried forward by willing hearts. Time moved gently now, no longer measured by urgency but by purpose. Elias no longer felt like a man waiting to decide. His decision had already shaped his days. What remained was learning how to live it fully. The elders gathered one final time, not because something was wrong, but because something needed to be acknowledged. These gatherings were never dramatic. They were steady, thoughtful, and calm. That was their strength. Elias sat among them, not at the center, but not at the edge either. Ayanna sat nearby, her posture relaxed, her presence confident. She no longer leaned on her staff. The injury had healed, but the experience had left its mark in quieter ways. An elder spoke about memory, how stories live longer than people, and how actions become lessons long after names are forgotten. He spoke of moments that change direction, not with force, but with meaning. Ayanna translated slowly, but some words no longer needed translation. Elias felt their truth before he fully understood them. The elder looked at Elias. "You came here by chance," Ayanna said. "You stayed by choice. That is what matters," another elder added. "The law has been honored, not because it demanded obedience, but because it was met with respect." There was no ceremony after that. No public declaration. Just quiet acceptance. That was how important things were done here. Life continued. Elias worked beside the people, laughed with them, learned from them. He was no longer treated as someone who had crossed into their world. He was someone who walked within it carefully. His bond with Ayanna continued to grow, shaped by shared values rather than expectation. They spoke openly about the past, about the future, about the responsibility that came with being seen. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the land glowed gold, Elias asked her something that had been in his heart for a long time. "Do you ever wish I hadn't found you?" he asked quietly. Ayanna did not answer right away. She watched the horizon. Thoughtful. "No," she said finally. "But I am glad you did not try to be more than you were." He nodded. "I was afraid of that. That fear protected us both," she said. Respect always begins there. Their understanding was deep, steady, and honest. It was not built on obligation, but on trust. Whatever path they walked next, it would be chosen, not assigned. In time, Elias became a familiar figure beyond the camp as well. Travelers passed through, and word spread of a guide who understood more than roads. He helped when asked, stepped back when needed. He spoke carefully, never claiming authority he did not have. Some asked why he stayed. He answered simply, "Because I was changed." Seasons passed. The land shifted as it always had. Children grew. Elders aged. Stories were told and retold. One story, in particular, found its place among them not as legend, but as reminder. It was the story of a man who chose not to walk away, not because he was brave, not because he expected reward, but because leaving would have broken something inside him. Years later, when Elias's hair had begun to gray, he sat with younger members of the community who asked him about that day in the canyon. He did not speak of danger. He spoke of stillness, of the moment when he realized that helping another person was not about heroism, but about responsibility. Ayanna, now a respected voice among her people, listened nearby. She did not correct his story. She did not add to it. The truth stood on its own. The sacred law was rarely spoken of directly anymore. It did not need to be. It lived in how people treated one another, in how choices were made, in how balance was protected. Elias understood then what the elders had meant from the beginning. The law had never bound Ayanna to him. It had bound him to the meaning of his own actions. As the fire burned low that night, Elias looked around at the people he had come to know as family, not by blood, not by force, but by shared respect. He felt no regret. No longing for a different path. Only gratitude. His life had not been divided into before and after by a single dramatic moment. It had been reshaped by a quiet decision, made without witnesses, in a hidden canyon. And that, he knew, was why it lasted. The story of Elias and Ayana was passed on not as a tale of rescue, but as one of choice. A reminder that true bonds are not created by rules alone, but by the willingness to honor what those rules protect. In the end, nothing was taken from either of them. Something better was built instead.